Today's video will teach you how to identify and understand decimal values in the place value chart. Let's look at the place value chart. We know in regular whole numbers the rightmost value is the ones column. To the left of that is the tens column. Left of the tens is the hundreds column. Left of the hundreds column is the thousands column, separated by a comma. Left of that is the 10,000ths. Left of that is the 100,000ths. And then the millions column, separated again by a comma. If we write the number 6, it appears in the ones column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 ones, and we write 6 in the ones column. We have one digit. This is the number 6. If we write the number 9, again it appears in the ones column. We can represent 9 as 9 ones. And again, this is one digit. This is the number 9. But what happens when we get to the number 10? The number 10 is made up of two digits. The 1 is in the tens column and the 0 now is in the ones column. This represents 110. It is made up of two digits. We have to put 1 in the tens column and a 0 in the ones column. Every digit has to appear in its own column. And every digit to the left is 10 times that place to the right. Let's look at the number 23. Again, each digit has to have its own place. 23 we can represent visually like this. And the 2 goes in the tens column and the 3 goes in the ones column. This is the number 23. It occupies two digits. Let's look at the number 99. Again, 9 in the tens column, 9 in the ones column. Visually, we can represent this by 9 tens and 9 ones. But when we get to 100, we now have three digits. This represents 100. And now we put the 1 in the hundreds column, the 0 in the tens column, and the 0 in the ones column. Again, each column to the left is 10 times that column to the right. What about the number 999? Again, that's three digits, 9 in the hundreds, 9 in the tens, 9 in the ones. But when we reach 1,000, we now need four digits. 1 is in the thousands column, and the hundreds, tens, and ones are zeros. Again, the thousands column is 10 times as great as the hundreds column. If we continue this, 9,999 again occupies four digits, 9 in the thousands, 9 in the hundreds, 9 in the tens, and 9 in the ones. When we reach 10,000, the 1 is in the 10,000s column. And the thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones have zeros. We have 5 digits. And the 10,000s column is 10 times as great as the thousands column. Now let's move backward from 10,000 back to 1,000. We'll notice that to move back to the right, we divide by 10. So 10,000 divided by 10 is 1,000. And moving backwards from thousands to 100, 1,000 divided by 10 gives us 100. If we move back again to 10, 100 divided by 10 gives us 10. And continuing to move to the right, to get 1, we take 10 and we divide by 10 to give us 1. Now let's look at the decimal place value chart, which is just an extension of our regular place value chart. If we wanted to write 1/10 as a decimal, we will need again to divide ones by 10. And that gives us the tenths column. And to write 1/10, we put a 1 in the tenths column and we put a 0 in the ones column. And this is one digit after the decimal point. The tenths column is now one digit after the decimal point. We can write this as a fraction as 1 over 10, or 1/10. Let's look at 5/10. Again, because we know we are dealing with tenths, notice the THS at the end of the word tenths. This is different from tens, TENS. Tens is to the left of the ones column, but tenths is to the right of the ones column. And so 5/10, we put a 5 in the tenths column and a 0 in the ones column. Again, that's one digit. And we know 5/10 is 5 over 10. Let's look at 9/10. We put a 9 in the tenths column, 0 in the ones, one digit, and we know that's 9 out of 10. What happens now if we want to write 1/100th? I see the tenths column, but again, when we divide tenths by 10, we get hundredths. And in order to write 100th with the TH on the end, we put a 1 in the hundredths column. And we write zeros in the tenths and the ones column, giving us 0.01, which is 100th. Notice that when we write hundredths, there are 2 digits after the decimal point. 1/100th can be written as 1 over 100. What about 7/100ths? Again, because we know we are dealing with hundredths, we know we need 2 digits after the decimal point, and we put 7 in the hundredths column, and we put zeros in the tenths and the ones column. Again, we have 2 digits. We can write this as a fraction as 7 over 100, 7/100ths. Now what about 1,000th? Notice at the end there's a TH again, and this is the clue that tells you that you are dealing with decimal values. Anytime you see a TH on the end, you're going to be talking about a decimal value. But I only see tenths and hundredths. Well, to get thousandths, we divide hundredths by 10, and we need another column that is called thousandths. And so we put a 1 in the thousandths column, and we put zeros in the hundredths, tens, and ones column. Notice that there are 3 digits now when we talk about thousandths. We can write that as a fraction as 1 over 1,000. This is 1,000th. 0.001 is 1,000th. So what about 4,000ths? Again, because we know we're talking about thousandths, we know we need 3 digits after the decimal point. So we put a 4 in the thousandths column, and we put zeros in the hundredths, tenths, and ones column. We know we have 3 digits because we're talking about thousandths, and this can be written as 4 over 1,000 as a fraction. Let's look at some other examples. How can we write 37/100ths? Well, because we know we are talking about hundredths, we know we need 2 digits after the decimal point. And so we write a 3 in the tenths column and a 7 in the hundredths column. We read that as 37/100ths. We write a 0 in the ones column to hold the place. Notice that there are 2 digits because we're talking about hundredths. This is 37/100ths, 0.37. We can write this as 37 over 100 as a fraction. How about 81/100ths? Again, hundredths tells us we need 2 digits after the decimal point. And so we write 8 in the tenths column, 1 in the hundredths column. We read that as 81/100ths. We put a 0 in the ones column to hold the place. And again, we can represent this as a fraction as 81 over 100, 81/100ths. How about 29/100ths? By now you should know how to do this. We need 2 digits because we're talking about hundredths. We write 2 in the tenths, 9 in the hundredths, 0 in the ones. This is read as 29/100ths, which can be written as 29 over 100 as a fraction. Now what about 24,000ths? Remember, thousandths means we need 3 digits after the decimal. And so we will write 2 in the hundredths, 4 in the thousandths, 0 in the tenths, 0 in the ones. We read that as 24,000ths. This can be written again as 24 over 1,000 as a fraction. What about 216,000ths? Again, thousandths means we need 3 digits after the decimal point. And we write 216 like this. 2 in the tenths, 1 in the hundredths, 6 in the thousandths, 0 in the ones. We can see that it's 216 thousandths. The 6 is the last digit. And if we look up, we see thousandths. And so we read this as 216 thousandths. This can be written as 216 over 1,000 as a fraction. Now let's look at 3/10ths. Tenths, if you remember, is 1 digit after the decimal point. And so we simply write 3 in the tenths column, 0 in the ones column. We can write this as 3 over 10 as a fraction. How would you read this number? 4.06. The decimal point between the ones and the tenths column is read as the word and. And so we read this as 4/600ths. Let's try another one. 41.15. Again, the decimal point we read as and so this is 41 and 15/100ths. And now it's quiz time. Write the following as a decimal. You have 5 seconds before the answer is revealed. 3 5/10ths. Time's up. The answer is 3.5. Number 2, 17/100ths. Time's up. The answer is 0.17. 17/100ths. Number 3, 2 5/100ths. Time's up. 2.05. 2 5/100ths. Question 4. 6 and 9/10. Time's up. 6 and 9/10 is 6.9. Remember, one digit after the decimal point is tenths, and so this is 6.9. And last question, 4 and 1,000th. Time's up. The answer is 4.001. Remember, thousandths means we need 3 digits after the decimal point. And so 4 and 1,000th is 4.001. And now you've solved the mystery of how to write decimal numbers. Great job.